honor to address you at the residence of the President on behalf of the Special Envoys on Antisemitism this morning. The meeting comes at a sobering moment. The anti-Semitic attack in Halle happened despite all our efforts. It was probably only thanks to an angel pushing his hand against the door from inside that the probably biggest massacre after the Shoah on European soil was avoided. 2 people, Jana and Kevin, nevertheless were murdered randomly. The perpetrator's action was deliberate against the Jewish community, and it was deliberate on Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur 5780 will be remembered not only by the community in Halle, but across Europe, like many of us remember 9/11. Everyone knows exactly what they were doing when they heard of the attack in Halle. Some, for the first time in their lives, broke Yom Kippur, switched on their mobile phones, started to work. Next year they will say, remember last year, and then remember 5 years ago, remember 10 years ago. We cannot simply go back to normal. In Europe, we are determined to turn this pernicious deed into positive action. Close cooperation between Israel and the EU is important piece in this endeavor, and our gratitude goes to President Ruvi Rivlin for enabling our exchange here today. You're an inspiration to all of us. On the day of the attack, Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker called upon all Europeans to stand up against anti-Semitism and stand in solidarity with the Jewish people. Halle must be remembered for being a turning point in how we all, state actors, civil society, churches and religious communities, unions, parties, schools, see and act upon anti-Semitism. It is our common responsibility and not above all the one of the Jews. Yet, I commend the reaction of Josef Schuster, the president of the German Central Council of Jews, after the attack, who refuted the idea to leave Germany, saying, "I will not move 1 centimeter to leave Germany to the Nazis." Exactly 1 week ago, Special Envoys on Antisemitism gathered with Jewish community leaders in Munich at the occasion of Chancellor Angela Merkel being honored with the Theodor Herzl Prize of the World Jewish Congress. At the center of our debate was the nexus between online hate speech and radicalization that translates into anti-Semitic and other hate crime in the real world. We used to think our children were safe as long as they were in their rooms, but nowadays they may well be out there in the virtual world exposed to toxic ideologies and hate speech. We discussed the need to properly apply existing legislation which already criminalizes speech inciting to hatred and violence on European soil, including Holocaust denial and distortion. The legislation needs to be applied online and offline. New legislation has been proposed for Europe obliging hosting service providers to take down terrorist content within 1 hour upon public order, and I mentioned this already before. Given the global challenge, such legislation would really be needed globally. And there has been progress, and I will not repeat what I said about the code of conduct with big IT companies earlier, but President-elect of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, committed to further strengthen initiatives combating anti-Semitism and illegal hate speech online, stating in Parliament that, and I quote, "A new Digital Service Act will upgrade liability and safety rules for digital platforms, services, and products, and complete the digital single market." Like in the real world, internet perpetrators must be taken to justice, and this means capacity building among law enforcement agencies and better understanding of the different forms of anti-Semitism. There has also been progress in the past 5 years beyond anti-Semitic and other hate speech, and I already mentioned the Council Declaration and the Parliament resolution and the IRA definition. But unless it is applied, little changes for the Jewish communities on the ground. We need trainers, capable of explaining the IHRA definition to teachers, state prosecutors, judges, police, politicians, sports clubs, civil society. And we need this training in the languages of the respective country. It is essential that public actors are fully aware just how much anti-Semitic conspiracy theories threaten our democracies, whether disguised as anti-Zionism or distortion of the Holocaust during public marches, whether hiding behind carnivals or caricatures in newspapers. The European Commission fully supports all these different processes, and I mentioned how we do it by bringing together the member states' authorities with representatives from the national Jewish communities in order to have, and some told me, for the first time, a real debate with their national authorities when we met for the first time in June last year. In last June. Ladies and gentlemen, anti-Semitism culminated in the Shoah, and the European Union was built on its ashes, guaranteeing, and I quote from the preamble of the Lisbon Treaty, human dignity, freedom, democracy, equality, the rule of law, and respect for human rights, including the rights of persons belonging to minorities. We are aware of our responsibility, and we will live up to it. Our goal remains for Jewish Europeans to be able to make life choices like any other citizen, proud of their identity, free from security concerns, proud of their history and their contribution in Europe. Visible and safe Jewish life is the measurement of our success. But for this success, we have to work. As the saying goes, Bishvil kavod, tzarich la'avod. President, in January, you will be hosting heads of state and government here in Jerusalem to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the liberation of the death camp Auschwitz-Birkenau. Revisionism and lack of education are threatening the common understanding of the pernicious uniqueness of the Shoah that is needed to translate never again into concrete action today. The price was unspeakably high, and this I say as a German and as a European. But there could hardly be a better and more symbolic and greater triumph over the Nazis than to mark this victory in Israel, the Jewish state. Am Israel Chai. Thank you.